Why do some coaches get clients quick and others don't? That's what we're discussing on this episode of the Business Coaching Success Podcast. Let's jump in. BJ O'Neill here with the Business Coaching Success Podcast. So glad you're here, where I share with you strategies, tools, and tips to be able to grow your business coaching practice to six figures and beyond as a Christian business coach. Let's jump in. Welcome. Glad that you are here. BJ O'Neill, hard to believe. We're in the final weeks of 2024. We're starting to talk about 2025. How do we rev the engine? How do we put ourselves in a position to win? What are the things we need to do? Specifically, how do I get leads and prospects? And even how do I get them quickly? Why can some get some quickly and others don't? In using the same exact strategies. We're going to jump into that. My answers may surprise you, and I'm just going to go ahead and warn you that part of my tone and my nature today is going to be a little bit strong-handed in that I want you to really put yourself in a position to think about the big picture. Too many people, they want it simple or easy or whatever, and sometimes that happens, but sometimes it does. It's life, right? Sometimes it just doesn't work that way, or the way that you work perhaps is a barrier. We're going to discuss that as well. So I'm going to jump right into it, and I think this will make good sense to you. I want you to take some notes. I want you to really process. This might be an episode to really kind of come back, because a lot of it has to do initially when we ask the question, where do I get leads and prospects? Why do some get them quicker than others, and so on? A lot of that first stems from a mindset. It's a paradigm shift. It's an attitude that you carry with you beyond just the actual strategies themselves. We're going to get into the strategies in a moment. But before we do that, we have to look at and consider foundations. Like, what's the bedrock foundations of how I think, how I act, how I behave, my attitude, my just the whole process of how I'm viewing this, okay? And the first couple is the ability to not be controlled by indecision and inaction. So let that sink in for a moment. And I say it because I see it every single day. I work with a lot of coaches, and I'm telling you, this comes up all the time, where it's just this idea where, we don't start out in building a business of any kind, much less a coaching practice, to not be active. Yet, that's exactly what happens. And that activity often is, it comes forth because of our lack of making decisions. That's the indecision. And how do we know that this is me? Well, if you've gone days, weeks, and even very worst case, several months, and you still haven't made decisions on, multiple areas of how you're going to grow your business coaching practice, there you go. That's how you know. Now, if you're thinking about and you're considering starting a business coaching practice, maybe you've thought about it for a long time. I talked to someone yesterday that, they help out some people here and there. It's very kind of haphazard. Some are free, a few are paid, but they really want to make this work. Well, if that's you, and you certainly, if you're interested in what we do, you can go to businesscoachmastery.com, get some information there. But bigger than that is that if that's you, I'm going to help you out right now, is that you cannot be controlled by indecision or inaction. I'm not suggesting be unprofessional. I'm not suggesting wing it. I'm just simply saying that no decision and no activity is going to harm your ability. All right. So there's that. So there's foundation set number one. The second thing are the three killers to a business coaching practice. You could also say, as we build ourselves up, at least my perspective, we want to be lion chasers. What do lion chasers do? Lion chasers run to the roar. In other words, they're not letting fear get in the way of their decisions and their activity. Okay? So as we understand all that, start to put together, we want to put on the board immediately and begin to fight against the three killers of any business coaching practice. And you could also say three killers of your dream. And your dream may be flexibility, wanting to be your own boss, having, I don't like the term unlimited income, but it is. You get to set what you want to make. But what kills those things? Well, already stated one, no activity. Number two, convincing ourselves that we simply can't do it. I work with very professional guys who will go down this road. When I say professional, I'm getting my thoughts out, so sorry for the pause. They own businesses. They've failed, they've won, yet they get into this ball game, and for some reason, they begin to convince themselves that they're not worthy, they don't know how to do it, they can't, whatever, and that will cripple your actions. It'll cripple your future. So, no activity, convincing yourself you can't, and then overthinking and overplanning. Process that for a moment, write it down, just connect with it for a moment. No activity, convincing yourself that you can't, and overthinking and overplanning. You may say, well, you got a plan. Yes, but in the beginning, our goal should not be to sit there and try to forecast the next, 5 years. We'll get to that point at the right time. We got to start to take action, because the quicker you take action, the more momentum you gain, your confidence goes up, you're in the aha zone, you start figuring things out, and it begins to gel. Doesn't mean it's perfect. Doesn't mean it always will go the way you want. It likely won't, because it's life. But things can actually change. So, of the coaches, so here's I kind of examined, looking back over the last year, maybe in the last couple of years, definitely in 2024. When I examined the ones that I work with and the ones that decided to not go through and continue, 80% of them, every single time, 80% convinced that they either didn't have enough time or they just don't know how, they just can't make it work, which is not true. Now, you might have already said, BJ, I don't have a lot of time. I'm going to get to that in a moment, but I want you just to listen to what I just said. We're talking about very talented, very skilled individuals who ended up saying to me that I just don't know how I can do this. I really don't have the time. These are just excuses. They just are. And I'm okay with the fact that you may not agree with me, but until you've been in my seat and you've been doing this for a long time, working with a lot of people, you just need to lean on and lead and listen to someone who's been there to say. And this is especially for you if you're beginning your coaching journey, or you're processing, thinking, and praying about doing that. Listen to me. Listen to me clear. Do not convince yourself. Don't let the enemy, as believers, as strong believers, don't let the enemy convince you that you're not worthy, that you can't do it, that you don't have enough time, and you just can't make it work. That means that the vast majority, it had nothing to do with skills or lack of skills. It had nothing to do with, they didn't have people to talk to. None of that. They just mentally got all this head trash up in their mind, and it literally kills dreams. And by the way, I've had a number of guys to come back a year, 2, 3 years later and kick themselves that they did not continue and they got back in the ballgame. So they have a year or two of interruption of fulfilling what it is that they feel very impregnated to want to be able to do. In other words, they have this calling, this drive for passion, for purpose, for flexibility, for income, all these things, being their own boss, but yet because of all this head trash, it got in the way. Now, I'm spending 8 minutes here, 9 minutes, just on the foundational principles, because everybody wants to go out and go do the strategy for getting leads and prospects. And I'm telling you, that's typically not going to work, because you got to make sure you have a strong mind, a strong framework of processing and thinking, and surrounding yourself with people that are educated with experience and understanding why I'm telling you why I'm telling you. Okay? Now, let's talk about time for a second, because time is it's all in the eye of the beholder. We all have the exact same amount of hours. We know that part, right? It's not a time issue. Usually it's a planning issue. Now, please hear me. I don't want to offend you to say, well, I'm okay if I do. If you got a lot going on, you have a full-time job, you own a business or whatever, yes, you got a lot on your plate of bandwidth. We all have that. But every single time I sit down with an individual to go through this and go through their calendar, help them, we find a significant amount of margin. Now, you may have to be more disciplined, well, you will, in your calendar when you have other things going on, full-time job, you own several businesses or whatever. Some don't have that issue, others do. And if that's you, you have the time. You have to plan and block your time correctly. I'll have some guys that will schedule time with me on my calendar and they'll change it like 5 times. That's an indication right there automatically someone is not disciplined with their calendar. So that's you. I'm telling you that there's an area for opportunity for growth. If you're so susceptible to the tyranny of the urgent, that will kill your momentum for getting clients. So we just got to be structured in our calendar. So if you only have 5 hours a week, by the way, you can get started with 5 hours a week. You're not going to go make $200,000 for 5 hours a week, but you can get started for sure with 5 hours a week. But you got to block that 5 hours a week. All right. So the bigger point is your mindset is critical. You can't allow yourself to head trash. You can't be susceptible to indecision and inactivity. And quite frankly, the coach that just goes out there and just even just kind of mucks it up a bit in the beginning, but they're active and they're figuring things out, will be farther down the road than the coach who sits, plans, polishes, tries to get every T. Look, I can't tell you how many times over the course of the last many years, I have had the grammar police to respond, you got a missing this, whatever. It's not that I'm okay with it, but sometimes just getting out there is better than just not getting out there at all and just overthinking it. And that's exactly how you need to process this. I'm not saying be unprofessional, but you've got to make sure that you're taking action. Okay. Mindset is the foundation of getting clients and getting them quicker. And here's why. Just recently, we have had someone who started with our program. We have inside Business Coach Mastery, our community. We use a specific method. We have software, resources, tools, all done for you and whatnot. And there's about 30 to 45 days or so of training, tool setup, training, and whatnot. And 2 weeks in, I had a conversation with this individual who is going through the process, but they're not there yet. They don't have all their tools up and running. It's just been 2 weeks. Yet, they had already taken our resources, which we have an assessment with our high-profile, very visual software to show business owners how we can find financial impacts for their business. And it sets up an invitation to work together. Okay? How could he already go out and conduct 2 of those assessments? He's not through training yet. He don't have all of his tools set up yet. That's called leverage. So when we look at strategies, now we're going to shift away from mindset and move into the actual strategies. The first one is leverage. And leverage means something to everyone. It'll be very different. In his case, he already had some relationships teed up. That made it a little bit easier to go to them. Now, you may not have that. That's fine. You may have leverage something else. But my bigger point is he didn't overthink the process. He kind of, I call it MacGyvered his way through the assessment. We have some online tutorials as well as live training as well. But he walked through enough of the online tutorials, figured out enough to be able to hold his own. And now, is that like the best way to do it? Well, he's got 2 opportunities sitting there. That's going to help him. He'll get one of those for sure. He's going to get one. I no doubt about it, just based upon what I know from those 2 scenarios. Yet, another individual with the same thing will sit there and overthink it and want everything perfect. Got to get all my paperwork, paper clips, post-it notes. Everything's got to get just right and whatever. And that will slow down your progress. Again, please don't misread and mishear what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting just go out there and winging it, but there are times where you have leverage where you can start to take action, and that's going to get you clients faster. So leverage, past relationships, your current sphere of influence, church, neighbors, people that you've known long, childhood friends. If you live in a community, you've grown up somewhere, through social media, everyone needs to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because that's how you're going to get introduced and to grow your network. You need to be able to grow the network and to grow it consistently. Well, that can't happen if you're not interacting with individuals, letting them see and understand what you do, okay? So really process that word leverage. Where do you have leveraged opportunities in your world? All right. Everyone needs to know what's going on and why. Okay. And so when you look at that, I'm getting my mindset right. I'm not going to allow indecision and inaction to rule me. I'm going to walk away and be a lion chaser. I'm going to run to the Lord. I'm going to be okay with just getting out there and being active. And then strategically, I'm going to begin to share what I'm doing with those that are closest to me, my sphere of influence, and finding areas in my world I can leverage. All right. Then our goal is to become the hunted. And maybe that needs to be the first part above leverage. They're kind of one and the same, not one and the same, but they're on the same, at the same level in that they both matter as much. But what does becoming the hunted mean? Well, in your community, and that could be LinkedIn, that could be a Facebook group, that could be locally, whatever. But in your community, you should be seen as a thought leader, a problem solver, and a strategist. So when you're interacting with others, it's really helping them to think through things. Because we don't want to approach every single relationship and conversation all about just selling business coaching services. I don't endorse that at all. Selling is a natural, persuasion is what it is. But it's how we view ourselves and how we're going to interact with others that's going to matter. So if you want to become the hunted, you use the right kinds of tools, you use the right kinds of mindset, you use the right kind of process that says they're going to see me as a strategist, as a problem solver, and as a thought leader. And then that's what you're going to work on forever. You're going to refine that, you're going to learn, you're going to study, you're going to read, and so on. But if all you try to do is to sell someone into something, it's going to be difficult. All right. So lastly, and you're like, well, we haven't talked about the strategies. So I'm going to share them with you right now. The three biggest ones that, now you may not even need to do this. Through your leverage and relationships, you may get to clients that way and get referrals. Who knows? Everyone's, we see it all kinds of different ways. But when you're looking at specific strategies, there are what we call the big three. That is, 1, workshops. This is not new. You know this, but it works. It'll always work. It's always worked. You're helping people see the aha moment. You're helping them to understand what they can't. Like in our system, we give you all those resources to provide a workshop and workbooks and whatnot. And then you have a call to action to move into the next thing. You foster community. Our style is, having 5 to 8 people in a workshop where, you plan out 6 months worth of those. And in your relationships that you're building through the different ways, the ones that you believe would be a good fit, you're inviting them to a workshop. And you keep it intimate, and you're able to keep scarcity to it by just saying, hey, this is 5 to 8 people in a room. We don't want a lot of people because we want to be able to really talk about strategically what's been going on in your business and so on, which again, we talk about all that. So workshops is number 1. Number 2 is networking. Again, not new. And I see it every single day. I tried networking, it didn't work. Next guy, dude, killing it. Why? Strategic process. They understand what they're going to say. They know how to interact with people. They know how to follow up with them. They're going to multiples throughout the week, different ways. Some are like, the BNI groups, some are the chamber groups or whatever. Again, the guy that is indecisive on being able to process through and not being very active with following up through networking, they're not probably going to do very well compared to the guy who's taking it very serious. They're not overthinking it. They're just getting out there, figuring out what groups makes the most sense. And then the third is joint ventures. Not making anything new up, except for we just have a process and systems and tools to help a coach be able to do that, to create opportunities with CPAs, with financial planners, with business brokers, with digital marketing companies, and so on. In other words, those who already have business paying clients. Now there's others, but those are the big three. And I can tell you, if you'll combine leverage, your sphere of influence, and a couple out of the big three, all you need to do. Because after you get 3 or 4 of your own clients, you should start getting referrals from your current clients. Now, I still would argue that being visible in the community, both in person and through social media and whatnot, over time is the holy grail. That's how you become the hunted. You speak at events, you get a chance to sit in, here and there. You get invited to this and that. You're on that board. I mean, that's really where over the period of a year, 2, 3 years down the road, that's how you just things will feel like they're falling in your lap, and they are arguably, but because of your investment as a strategist, a problem solver, and someone who is a thought leader in the circles that you're in. But if you sit behind your computer day after day, if you continue to plan and make notes and things like that, and you don't get active with others, it's probably not going to work. So a little bit different angle, I think, in terms of how do I get leads and prospects. Prayerfully, this style resonates with you. And if it does, and you're looking to grow a business coaching practice, again, go to businesscoachmastery.com. And we've got some resources there. You can schedule a time to chat with us. We'll share with you exactly what we do, how we can help you and support you, and go from there. Okay? Until next time, take care.